Hello guys, welcome to review lesson number 6. It's review month. Watch this video, fill out the questions as I go along, and turn it in. You'll do amazing. Let's get started with question number 1. Which of the following most accurately describes Stephen Douglas's idea of popular sovereignty? A section of Western land would be given free to anyone who would homestead it for a certain number of years. B. Only citizens of the United States would be permitted to settle territories acquired from Mexico. C. Public lands in the new territories would be open on a first-come, first-served basis. D. The status of slavery in a territory would be determined by the voters in the territory. Or E. New territories would be closed to both slaves and free blacks. So what accurately describes the notion of popular sovereignty? The best definition here is D. The status of slavery in a territory would be determined by the voters. This led to altercations and controversies. Number 2. All of the following figured prominently in debates over the Compromise of 1850 except the A. Provision for a new fugitive slave law, B. Slave trade in the District of Columbia, C. Admission of California into the Union as a free state, D. Future of slavery in the Mexican Cession territories, or E. Extension of slavery into Kansas and Nebraska territories. So, what was not a part of the Compromise of 1850? The answer is E. Extension of slavery into Kansas and Nebraska territories. This was determined by popular sovereignty later on. Number 3. Which of the following was a major factor in the decline of the Whig Party in the 1850s? A. Death of John Calhoun, B. Election of Zachary Taylor, C. Lincoln-Douglas debates, D. Know Nothing movement, or E. Bleeding Kansas. The answer is, so what was a major factor in the decline of the Whig Party? The answer is the Know Nothing movement. Number 4. A political effect of the fighting in Kansas in 1855 and 1856 was to A. Further divide the Democratic Party, B. Cause the funding of the Republican Party, C. Gain increased congressional support for pro-slavery forces in Kansas, D. Unite Northern and Southern Democrats against Republicans, or E. Elect a Republican president in 1856. The answer to this question is A. Further divide the Democratic Party. So this fighting in Kansas was pushed to further divide the already broken apart Democratic Party. Question 5. The Supreme Court's decision in the Dred Scott case outraged public opinion in the North chiefly because it A. Declared the fugitive slave law unconstitutional. B. Guaranteed citizenship to free blacks. C. Removed restrictions against the spread of slavery in the Western territories. D. Failed to abolish slavery in the North. E. Challenged California's status as a free state. So, this is a good question to analyze. What is the question asking you? Because this is asking you in terms of the public opinion in the North. So, not the South, not the West. What was the public opinion in the North in the aftermath of the Dred Scott case that outraged the North? It was C. Removed restrictions against the spread of slavery into the Western territories. Number 6. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 increased sectional tension because it A. Enriched Northern railroad investors at the expense of the South. B. Reopened the issue of slavery in a territory north of the 3630 line. C. Supported pro-slavery state constitutions in Kansas and Nebraska. D. Repealed the Compromise of 1850. Or E. Persuaded the Whig Party to side with the South. So what was the prime motivation behind the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and how did it increase sectional tensions? The answer is B. Reopened the issue of slavery in a territory north of the 3630 line. Number 7. The Lincoln-Douglas debates resulted in all of the following except A. Lincoln's emergence as a national political figure. B. Increased support for Douglas in the South. C. Douglas's re-election to the Senate. D. Douglas's attempt to reconcile popular sovereignty with the Dred Scott decision. E. Increased public awareness of slavery as a moral issue. What did the Lincoln-Douglas debate fail to do? The answer to that question is B. Increased support for Douglas in the South. The debates did not increase his support. 8. John Brown's primary purpose in attacking Harper's Ferry was to A. Gain contributions from Northern abolitionists. B. Take revenge for the death of anti-slavery settlers in Kansas. C. Start a slave rebellion in Virginia. D. Open up a new path for the Underground Railroad. E. Destroy the federal arsenal in Virginia. So what was the primary purposes behind John Brown's actions to attack Harper's Ferry? The answer is to start. His primary motivation was to start a slave rebellion in Virginia. Question number 9. In the 1860 election, what was the position of Lincoln and the Republican Party on slavery? A. Slavery it was immoral and should be abolished immediately. B. Slavery should not be allowed to expand into the territories. C. Popular sovereignty would be allowed in the new territories north of the 3630 line. D. The Dred Scott decision should be supported in the territories but not in the states. Or E. The federal government should act to bring about the gradual emancipation of slaves in the South. So, this is a trick question because you really have to think about Lincoln's motivations into bringing the Union together. And where was the Republican Party during this time period? The answer is B. Slavery should not be allowed to expand. So A is incorrect because he did not believe it should be abolished immediately. He believed in stopping the problem, so not letting it expand and bringing the Union together. That was his chief motivation. Number 10. All of the following statements about the election of 1860 are accurate except A. The Republicans won control of the presidency but not Congress. B. No candidate received a majority of the popular vote. C. The popular and electoral vote were divided among 4 candidates. D. Lincoln won the election because of the split in the Democratic Party. Or E. A major consequence of the election was that several southern states seceded from the Union. So what is not accurate about the election of 1860? The answer is D. Lincoln won election because of the split of the Democratic Party. Number 11. Northern advantages in the Civil War included all of the following except A. A superior navy, B. A political party system that could marshal support for the war, a superior railroad network, general agreement over war aims, or greater capacity to produce military equipment. So what was not an advantage of the North? The correct answer to that question and so much more, just wanted to say that, is general agreement over war aims. During the Civil War in the North, it was hard to get on the same page with their end goal of the Civil War. Number 12. All of the following were part of the initial Union strategy to win the Civil War, except, so what was not a part of the Union strategy during the beginning of the Civil War? A naval blockade of southern ports. B, control of the Mississippi River. C, the capture of Richmond. D, keeping the border states in the Union. E, emancipation of slaves in the seceded states. The answer is E. The initial Union strategy was not to emancipate the slaves. That came later. So focus on key words in a question. This question had the word initial in it. Number 13. The Confederate government was able to achieve which of the following goals? A. Recognition by a foreign power. B. Frequent victories over Union armies. C. A stable monetary system. D. A strong central government. E. Control of the Southern river system. So which was the following goal that the Confederate government was able to achieve? The answer to that is frequent victories over the Union Army. Number 14. President Lincoln was reluctant to emancipate the slaves in the first year of the Civil War because A. He feared that freeing the slaves would bring England and France into the war. B. Congress was opposed to emancipation. C. He knew that a proclamation about slavery would only further alienate the South. D. He feared that emancipation would drive the border states out of the Union. E. He had always been opposed to the abolitionists in his party. D. He feared that emancipation would drive the border states out of the Union. So, I just want to come up here because this is a great question to show you guys on. So, when I took APUSH, right, you could find on my paper a bunch, especially on the multiple choice section, you could find a bunch of little notations like this. I would write A, B, C, D, E, right? If I did not know the question, right? So I would go through the answer choices like A, he feared why England and France, why would that bring England and France into the war? That is a ridiculous answer, so it's not A. So Congress was opposed to emancipation. Not really. Not really, because it was full of Republicans, so no. He knew that a proclamation about slavery would only further alienate the South. I could agree with that statement. D, okay, I would agree with that statement. He had always been opposed to the abolishments in his party. No. So I am left with a 50-50 shot. Right? 50-50. That is better odds than, I don't know, 16%. So, and the correct answer is D. So I would do that. I strongly think you should do the same if you're unsure. That's the process of elimination, right? Okay. Alright, let's move on. I would show you more of that as we progress. Which of the following best describes an immediate effect of the Emancipation Proclamation? A. Slaves in the border states became free. B. Slaves in the Deep South became free. C. The abolishment of slavery in Confederate territory became one of the North's war goals. D. Lincoln's re-election was assured. E. Draft riots erupted in New York City. So which of the following best describes an immediate? Notice the word immediate. The answer is C. The abolition of slavery in Confederate territory became one of the North's war goals. Number 16. Lee's major reason for invading Northern Territory in 1863 was to A. Win foreign recognition for the Confederacy, B. Obtain military supplies, C. Seek revenge for Northern attacks in Virginia, D. Break the Union blockade, E. Destroy the North's industrial capacity. So, what was his major goal? His major reason for invading the North? A. Win foreign recognition for the Confederacy. Number 17. The economic impact of the Civil War included all of the following except A. An increasing number of women in the labor force, B. Widespread destruction of property in the South, C. Creation of a national banking system in the North, D. Reduced rate of industrial production in the North, or E. Runaway inflation in the South. So what was the not an economic impact of the Civil War? The answer is reduced rate of industrial production in the North. Number 18. Which of the following accurately describes Northern politics during the Civil War? A. Democrats challenged Republicans for control of national and state offices. B. Republicans were united behind Lincoln's leadership. C. The suspension of habeas corpus discouraged many Democrats from voting. D. Lincoln had no trouble winning re-election in 1864. E. Copperhead candidates campaigned for equal rights for women. The answer is A. Democrats challenged Republicans for control of national and state offices, because the Democrats were pro-slavery, so they wanted their agenda passed in national and state offices. Number 19. All of the following were factors in the defeat of the South in 1865 except, so what was not a factor? A. Shortages caused by the Union's naval blockade. B. Slave uprisings against Southern plantations. C. Grant's War of Attention in Virginia. D. Sherman's march through Georgia. Or E. The Confederacy's failure to obtain foreign intervention. So what was not a factor in the defeat of the South? B. Slave uprisings. This did not contribute to the defeat of the South. Number 20. One of the long-term political consequences of Northern victory was A. An end of threats of nullification and secession, B. A dominance of the Republican Party in the South, C. Continuing sectional conflict over the issue of slavery, D. A balance of power in Congress between the North and the South, E. Suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. The answer was one of the long-term political consequences of the North's victory during the Civil War was an end of threats of nullification and secession. So this did not happen again. Number 21. The purpose of Lincoln's and Johnson's plans for Reconstruction was to A. Punish the South for causing the Civil War, B. Give Congress the final authority in the process of Reconstruction, C. Give equal voting rights for both white and black males in the South, D. Provide financial aid to rebuild the South, or E. Encourage rapid readmission of ex-Confederate states into the Union. E. Encourage rapid readmission, because what was the end goal to Lincoln's presidency? It wasn't to emancipate the slaves. It was to join the Union together whatever way possible, and that was through emancipating the slaves. Number 22. In 1865, a number of southern states passed black codes in order to A. Control movement and provide a stable workforce for the plantations, B. Keep the two races segregated in public places, C. Limit the educational opportunities of recently freed slaves, D. Embarrass President Johnson's administration, or E. Convince the North that the South could handle its own problems. So why did the southern states pass black codes? The answer is A. Control movement and provide a stable workforce for the plantation. Black codes were designed to limit African Americans' freedoms after the Civil War. Number 23. The Freedmen's Bureau provided all of the following except food, shelter, and medical aid for the victims of the war, resettlement of some freed slaves on confiscated lands, C. Protection from sharecropping agreements, D. Schools to promote literacy among blacks, E. Colleges for blacks. So what did the Freedmen's Bureau not provide? The answer is protection from sharecropping agreements. They did not provide that protection, and that allowed this quote-unquote new version of slavery, aka sharecropping, to exist in the South. Number 24. Which of the following was not provided for African Americans by Congressional Reconstruction? A. Guarantee of U.S. citizenship. B. Equal protection of the laws. C. Distribution of confiscated Confederate farmlands. D. Protection for voting rights. E. Equal access to public accommodations. So which of the following was not provided? E. Distribution of confiscated Confederate farmlands. Number 25. President Andrew Jackson was impeached for A. Vetoing the Civil Rights Act of 1866, B. Refusing to support the 13th Amendment, C. Taking a controversial position on states' rights, D. Removing a radical Republican from his cabinet, or E. Attempting to break up the Republican Party. So what event was Andrew Johnson impeached for? Removing a radical Republican from his cabinet. They did not like that in Congress. Number 26. An analysis of the election of 1868 best supports the conclusion that A. The Republicans had given up on gaining the black vote. B. The weakened Democratic Party had little chance to elect a president. C. Northerners overwhelmingly approved the policies of radical Republicans. D. Voters approved of impeachment of Andrew Johnson. Or E. Republican victory depended on the votes of African Americans. So what did the election of 1868 set out to prove and proved? Republican victory depended on the votes of African Americans. Number 27. The Republican Reconstruction governments in the South accomplished all of the following except A. Developing state-supported public school system for whites and blacks. B. Reducing waste and corruption in local and state governments. C. Funding state institutions to care for the sick and handicapped. D. Building of roads, bridges, harbors, and railroads. Or adopting libertized state constitution. So what didn't the Republican Reconstruction governments not accomplish? Reducing waste and corruption in the local and state governments. Number 28. By the end of Reconstruction, most blacks in the South had immigrated to lands in the West. B. Owned small family farms. C. Earned wages as factory workers in the new industries. D. Worked on farms as renters and sharecroppers. Or E. Operated independent businesses in the black community. The answer is D. Worked on farms as renters and sharecroppers, because that was one of the main reasons that this whole Reconstruction effort failed drastically. The Redeemers in the South supported A. Integrated schools and public places. B. States' rights and white supremacy. C. Increased state spending for internal improvements. D. Continued cooperation with the military to protect the freedmen. Or E. Redemption of greenback dollars with gold. So, what did the Redeemers support? The answer is B. States' rights and white supremacy. Number 30, last question. Congressional Reconstruction ended in 1877 because why did Reconstruction fail? A. It was part of a compromise to resolve the disputed election of 1876. B. African Americans in the South no longer needed federal protection of their civil rights. C. The Supreme Court ignored the requirements of the 14th Amendment. D. The newly elected president was a moderate Republican. E. The Union Army had succeeded in suppressing the Ku Klux Klan. So why did Reconstruction fail? A. It was part of the corrupt bargain. Number 2. Alrighty guys, that's an end to review lesson number 6. Please, if you haven't already, turn in the document via Google Classroom. See you guys tomorrow.